It has been over a year since my wife started an affair with Howard Paddington, and I don't know why I let it go on for so long. Perhaps it was because I was comfortable with it. After I realized what was happening, I didn't care. I patiently waited for the day she would give me the divorce agreement. I made no preparations other than adjusting my mindset. I accepted the fact that she would take half of the property I had accumulated together with her. She would be happy to get the house and the furniture, whose valuation is now even lower than the mortgage loan. We just had enough savings to cover our daughter Jenny's 4 years of college expenses. In another 3 years, I would transfer the company's equity, and she might claim part of the funds. Martha was very conservative about her affair. The biggest problem was that Paddington and I worked in the same company. He worked in a different department with 1 level higher salary than me. At least he was single and quite attractive. What I didn't like was his arrogant attitude. I found it easy to avoid him at work. The only time I was forced to interact with him was in the company's social relations department. Things were quickly resolved. Jenny went to the University of Pennsylvania to start her first semester, and Martha and I were alone at home for the first time in 18 years. Usually, this would be a good opportunity for couples to increase their sexual activities, but not in our home. Martha was always too tired or too busy, and I didn't care. It was a Saturday morning. Martha was taking a bath, and I was still reading the morning newspaper when the phone rang. I didn't expect a call, so I let it go straight to the answering machine. It was at least an interesting message. A jeweler named Malcolm called to say that the engraving on your watch is finished, and you can pick it up at any time, thank you. Well, this is interesting. I don't wear a watch, and I've never been bothered by having something hanging on my arm. Mara had no reason to engrave anything on her watch, and Jenny checks the time with her phone. I was never the type to snoop through my wife's wallet or anything else, but today I felt a strong impulse. The receipt from the jewelry store was hidden in the pocket where she kept her credit card. I read it carefully, a special Carrera watch with a black alligator strap, engraved on the back with, "Never Forever," paid in full by Martha for $33,900. I put it back carefully and got myself a cold beer. I was very clear that it was not for me. Martha had just returned to the living room when I went out to start mowing the lawn. It took twice as long to finish the yard work as usual, but I had a good chance to think. After lunch, Martha told me she was going to spend the night at her sister's house in Frankville. She didn't notice the bright smile on my face. I spent the rest of the time organizing my affairs. I had a whole year to do this, but I waited until the last minute. I blamed myself for procrastinating, but I was glad I finally made a decision. She came home on Sunday afternoon, and we were very close in spirit but almost didn't speak. It was the longest Sunday of my life. That night I slept on the sofa. On Monday morning, work was normal until Howard started showing off his new watch to all the colleagues. I had endured all this until he looked in my direction with a bright smile. He had been calm and silent about it until now, and he started showing off, which was a big mistake. I immediately took a week off and then notified the staff that I was ready to transfer to the Baltimore office. This new job came with a promotion and a raise. I had refused several times because Mara and Jenny didn't want to move. I spent the rest of the day at the bank and with the lawyer. I drafted a proposal to give Martha everything, but no alimony or interest in my future pension. She could have all the remaining money after we paid for Jenny's tuition. The college expenses were so high that there was almost nothing left. When my wife was not at home, I moved my luggage to a small apartment near my workplace. On Tuesday, I was on vacation, and the divorce agreement was delivered to Martha on Wednesday. She called me, "John, do you want to explain something? Is there anything you want to talk about?" "Well, no. Why do I have to sign these papers?" "Martha, this is something that should have been done a long time ago, and signing these papers will only solve everything. I am the one who suffered, and you get nothing, nothing at all. You provide too little support. You gave me 20 years, and you provide nothing. If I include alimony, it will only last until you remarry. In my opinion, it will be a waste of time. This way, it will be over in 90 days. If you want to make changes, I can guarantee that it will take more than a year. I just want to move on." "I understand, you really want to move on." "Oh, who told you?" "Of course, I know the answer. Does it matter now? No. There was a pause in the conversation. Martha, I am the one who was hurt. I was forced to move. I did nothing wrong, but I am still being punished. I have known Paddington for many years. Just sign these damn papers. I'm sorry, John, I never thought things would turn out like this. I will send them to the lawyer tomorrow. It was the perfect opportunity to blame her, but I refused to give her the satisfaction. On Friday, I came to work and cleaned my desk. No one expected to see me, and a few people objected to my not organizing a proper farewell party. I was not in the mood for a party. It took less than an hour to clean up, and before I left, I called Jenny and explained the situation as best as I could. How can you tell your daughter that you are leaving her mother without a good reason? She asked once and then left the topic as if she had some understanding of what had happened. I don't understand how she could not know, because it was a long time ago. I felt that she understood that the trip to Baltimore was sad. All I could think about was the life I had built with Mara and how it was easily destroyed. I always planned to grow old with her. Now I have no plans to grow old. In fact, I don't care. Mara never apologized for her actions, nor did she even admit to them. We naturally avoided the topic, we all knew what happened, but we would not be the first to bring it up. One might go crazy thinking about all these things. I turned on the radio. Who the hell is Lady Gaga? The new job was easy. I was at least overqualified. My abilities and confidence made my subordinates feel comfortable. This must have been a good decision. I have been keeping in touch with Jenny, and she shared all her mother's information with me. Howard moved into Mara's house a week after I left. Jenny was not happy, and I can't blame her. Mara signed all the divorce terms, and she didn't even hire her own lawyer. Everything is going as planned, and now all I can do is wait. When we were only 3 weeks away from completing the divorce, I signed up for a 10-day Caribbean cruise. I hate cruises, but this one was necessary. Before the weekend when I planned to leave, I met with old friends in Atlantic City. I bought them wine, had dinner with them, and entertained them. It's great to have old friends. The 10 days at sea were long. I couldn't decide what I hated the most, the food or the other guests. Sometimes I'm sure at least 3 single women were chasing me. At least I think they were lonely. I used all the ports to eliminate boredom. When I finally got home, there were a few guests waiting for me. They were detectives from Baltimore, but they were requested by the Pennsylvania police. Howard Paddington's body was found at a rest area by the Pennsylvania Turnpike. He was beaten with something similar to a baseball bat and died on the way to the local hospital. His wallet and watch were taken, so the first sign was that this was a failed robbery. When the investigators revealed the relationship between Paddington and Martha, I became the main suspect. The local police confirmed in less than 30 minutes that I had been on a cruise for the past 10 days. The Pennsylvania police thought there was no need for further research. There were at least a dozen messages on my phone. Jenny told her mother about my cruise plans, but Martha insisted on trying to contact me. Martha knew I hated cruises. One of the calls was from Jenny, so I called her back. Jenny, I just got back from the cruise, what the hell happened? No one is sure, Mom is desperate. Howard didn't come home from work one day, and he was found on the highway near Downingtown that night. He was beaten and died before they could get him to the hospital. When did this happen? Last Thursday. Well, I was in Cancun last Thursday, so it wasn't me. Mom swears you're involved in this, but there's no evidence to support it. I just spent a lot of time here with the local police, and they seem to be satisfied with my explanation. So why is your mother trying to contact me? She's completely lost, she doesn't have you, and now she's lost Howard. She said something about trying to stop the divorce. Can she do that? Not without my approval. If I wait a few more days, I won't have a problem. Next week was full of calls from Martha and a lawyer named Winstrid. I ignored them all. The divorce was about to become final in 2 days, and a registered letter arrived asking for my signature. My secretary managed to delay the delivery so that I had a chance to leave the building. I spent the next 3 days in Atlantic City and then went home. I called my lawyer, who congratulated me on successfully avoiding Martha's attempt to stop the divorce, and then asked me for another $10,000 to pay the fees. After some awkward moments, he started laughing. It was a low-level joke, but it added some lightness to the situation. He said he would rather have a steak dinner. It was worth it. I still think it was a low-level joke. I never fully understood why the police stopped investigating Paddington's murder, or why they never contacted me again. Jenny called to congratulate me, but of course, in a low-key way, which is fitting for a child who sees her parents break up. Martha fell into a deep depression. Her sister Sherry lived with her for a while. It turned out that she suddenly realized she had financial problems, serious financial problems. I laughed when I hung up the phone, because I didn't contact Martha for the next 2 years. I didn't follow up with her or check what she was doing. I spoke to Jenny every month, but we were both very careful to avoid any talk about Martha. All I knew was that she lost her home to the bank and worked in a women's clothing store in the local mall. Martha told Jenny that Howard had 2 insurance policies, listing his mother as the beneficiary. Apparently, Paddington's mother didn't want to share. I had a few dinner dates, but no romance or sex. Later that year, Jenny announced that she would get married in June. I had met the guy a few times and was very satisfied with her choice. The wedding would be held in Harrisburg, his hometown. Of course, the groom's father would pay for most of the expenses. I was very willing to help in any way. There were more relatives on the groom's side than ours, so it made sense. I agreed to give the bride away, if Jenny could promise me that I would not sit next to Martha or have to socialize with her in any way. She reluctantly agreed. I didn't want to ruin my daughter's wedding, but I felt that if I was forced to interact with Martha, the chances of disruption would be greater than if I simply avoided her. In addition to buying a suit, I had one thing to do to prepare for the wedding. I felt evil, or rather, my evil side erupted. It was a beautiful wedding, wasn't it? Jenny kept her promise, and everything was carefully organized so that Martha and I could avoid each other without looking at each other. Although I was alone, Martha was accompanied by a handsome man in his 50s. I never figured out what their relationship was. He could be a work colleague, neighbor, or her new boyfriend-friend. I really didn't care. At the reception, Martha and her escort sat at the far left corner of the main table, and I was at the far right corner. I waited patiently until it was time for the bride's father to make a toast. When I stood up to give the speech, I crossed my fingers. It was a silly little prank, but I still hoped it would go as I planned. I am right-handed, but today I held the glass with my left hand. The words that came out of my mouth were not important, but when I gestured to the room, when I raised my left hand, the sleeve of the evening dress slipped down, revealing a beautiful special Carrera alligator strap watch. I raised my hand longer than necessary, letting everyone in the room see this exquisite watch. A sigh from the far end of the table told me my mission was accomplished. I spoke a little longer than usual, just to make things easier. When I sat down, I had a big smile on my face. Martha saw the watch and recognized it. All the plans came true. A few minutes later, I saw my ex-wife and her escort leave the room. She was upset, but I couldn't tell if she was crying or not. I lingered like a responsible father for an hour, then quietly left and went back to my hotel room. I slept restlessly that night. I was not sure what Martha would do or if she would do anything. If she did nothing, I knew she had accepted her fate and was ready to move on. If she was still worried about what happened, I might have a visitor. The answer came at 6 a.m. Mr. John Terrell, 2 of them were wearing dark suits. I suddenly had a picture of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in Independence Day, and I laughed sarcastically when I answered. Yes, how can I help you? The dominant man in the suit introduced himself and his partner, then asked to come in. They were not local, but from the state prosecutor's office. I wonder who got them up so early. I motioned for them to sit down while I put on my pants. I expected them, and I should have been dressed before they arrived. There were only 2 chairs in the hotel room, so I sat on the messy bed. I deliberately took longer than necessary to get comfortable. How can I help you, gentlemen? Are you John Terrell who was at the Peterson-Terrell wedding yesterday? Of course, I am. Jenny Terrell is now called Peterson, and she is my daughter. We received a call saying that you were wearing an expensive special watch at the reception. I reached to the bedside table and picked up an oversized watch. Yes, I was wearing that watch. Do you like it? It doesn't matter, Mr. Terrell. What we want to know is where you got this watch. Can you answer our question first? No, you tell me why you want to know, who told you I have it, and I will answer your question. Mr. Terrell, we are trying to make this easy. Can you answer this question first? Mr. Terrell, okay, I bought a watch on eBay. Now tell me, why do you want to know? The watch is the same as the one you are holding, and it was taken from a murdered man in Downingtown 3 years ago. I'm sure there are many similar watches. Can you be more specific? They were a bit uncomfortable. I felt like they just wanted to drag me to some government building to finish the conversation. Mr. Terrell, do you know a man named Howard Paddington? Of course, I used to work with him. He was the man who had an affair with my wife, and by the way, this led to my divorce. Paddington had exactly the same watch when he was murdered. How do you know? Neither of my two visitors responded. Was he found wearing the watch? They shook their heads in unison. Do you think it might be his watch? They should have controlled this informal interrogation, but they seemed to be losing their composure. Who exactly told you it was Howard Paddington's watch? Your wife, Mr. Terrell. Your wife recognized the watch. How did she know it was his watch? There was a slight hesitation. She claimed she bought it for him. Maybe you should talk to her. There was no response. That's it, that's all you need to know. There is an inscription on the back of the watch that will support her claim. Can she prove she bought the watch? She has a receipt. Damn it, I have a receipt too. Let me show you. You sit there silent as I take a folded note from my wallet and hand it to them. The main guy looked from the paper to me. This is from eBay, and it says you bought the watch for $49. Yes, but I had to pay an additional $15 for shipping. Did you buy a special watch on eBay for $49? Not exactly. Look closely at the description. They both looked at the description, not noticing the wide smile on my face. It says TIG Hauer, not T. Hauer. Look at the watch's dial. When I handed it to him, the second suit examined it. He said, TIG Hauer gentlemen, did my wife buy a T. Hauer watch for Mr. Paddington, or did she buy a TIG Hauer watch for him? Disappointed expressions appeared on both of their faces. Things were not going as planned. Can we see the back of the watch, Mr. Terrell? Do you want to check the inscription? Yes, do you mind? No, not at all. I handed them the watch and let them check at will. I made my point. As I put on my shirt, they both stood up to leave. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Terrell. Have a safe trip home. After they left, I closed the door and looked at my watch. I was glad I spent an extra $20 to engrave the back of the watch. I flipped it over and laughed as I read the Old English inscription, eat, __, and die. They could have easily checked the watch's serial number, but that would not have been as fun. I drove back to Baltimore, knowing my wife was still not satisfied with the way I handled the situation. I guess I can't blame her, but I hope she has some regret. I was uneasy because she still wanted to hurt me or get revenge on me. She was the one who cheated, not me. Maybe it's time for me to get revenge. I threw the TIG Hauer watch out of the window and reached into the glove box. You can tell the difference by touch. Before putting on the real watch, I read the inscription for the 1000th time. Forever to March. I can't stand wearing watches, but maybe I can get used to wearing this one. I'm going to go all the way to the end. Just like old Blue Eyes said.